Hello, this is Emilie Autumn here in Brussels, and you are, I assume, watching Metal Blast because, well, you're here. And I'm here with Michael Jackson. We've been practicing the moonwalk. And stay tuned for the next episode where I will be giving a lesson on dancing, including the moonwalk, which I am, of course, the best at on the face of the planet. So look forward to that. Thank you.
My heart is a weapon of war. My voice is my weapon of joy.
But it isn't so much in in-person interviews that's sort of silly. It's when it's been exclusively on when I do all the email interviews, and most of the questions are always exactly the same, which is especially annoying because they're written and you could so easily just look at all these other interviews, and why would you basically write the same exact thing as another written interview? They're completely the same, and anybody, if they wanted to know anything about me at all, if they cared, could easily look at any of them. And even the fans have been on forums saying, like, all the questions are the same, what's the point of this? But the first question that all of these email interviews have been asking is, can you describe yourself, your show, your music to our audiences who don't know you? And I thought, as I said pretty clearly in 140 characters or less, like, isn't that kind of your job as a journalist? Why else? That is your opportunity as a journalist to use your own words and say your own opinion of this person or this thing. Like, do some goddamn research. And that's been the thing. But it doesn't apply to like a situation like this when we're just talking. It's when it's written, because you can so easily just copy and paste those words from other people. And I think as any artist would be annoyed by it, because it's like, if you paint a picture or you write a novel or something, you do the art. You don't describe it. That's other people's jobs to understand it or not, describe it or not. But it doesn't seem like it should be your job to explain, now this is what I'm doing. That's your job as the artist. You create it, you put it out there, and it's other people's job to come up with the words to go with it, because I've already done mine. But in that being said, that does not apply to our situation. Ask anything under the sun that you would like to, because I'm happy to speak with you about anything.
Now you're trying to kind of put a sort of a preview of this musical.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely what it is it's just a bit of a hint into where this is all going from, in the past, Emilie tours and all the things that really started all of this, especially in Europe, which is where it all began. I mean, it took more years for North America to even care about anything, but it was about me with, the help of my girls on stage, kind of setting the tone and the atmosphere for what this crazy asylum world is about. This kind of, unique genre-bending musical style. Me is, having a unique perspective on life and things, I would like to think. And now that stage literally has been set, it's now entirely about telling a story, to where that's become more important even than, as crazy as it seems to say, more important even than the music, is that the music is the most important part of the puzzle that will tell this story. It's the main voice of it all. But what I've realized is, more than anything I want to be in this life, I want to be a great storyteller and use music and visuals and sex and comedy and humor and all of those things to tell a story with, a real message, a real point, and real entertainment. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And thank you for noticing that is all this is about, is telling just a bit and what we can fit into, a rock venue of what, right now we're a cast of 4 girls, and what this is being made into is a massive theatrical production with a cast of maybe 40 people. So it's our job to just to just give a hint of where this is all going and to kind of pave the way for 2014, the musical debut in London's West End. And then, of course, we'll take it everywhere, but it's the sort of thing where you have to, in order to really do this properly, because it's the story of this whole, 5-pound book that I wrote, the Asylum for Wayward Victorian Girls book, it's such an epic, massive story that you can't fit that into a rock venue. We're honored sincerely to play in all of these places. It's an amazing experience to be somewhere new every day and meet all these people around the globe, and yet the show that we're trying to put on can't possibly, it needs to be in a theater where you're at least, you have a residency. It's the same place every night for at least a month or two, and then you move on to the next one. But you need rafters, you need proper wings for set changes, you need, a pit for an orchestra to go into, because that's what's happening. And that's what I get to spend the next 2 years, just pretty much locking myself in a cave, other than touring, just writing constantly the rest of the soundtrack to this thing, and deciding who the 40 people in this cast are going to be, because that's a lot. But there's just so many characters in this. We have rats. We have a whole army of rats, which that's been another fun thing of thinking, all right, will the rats in the musical be animatronic? Will they be puppets? Will they be just shadows behind a screen? What will they? And I've decided that at least Basil and Sir Edward, the two primary rats that are like the logo of the show, the shirts, everything is this rat character. They will actually be like actual people in costume. It sounds so ridiculous, but I figure if Andrew Lloyd Webber can do it with fucking cats, we can have rats. So, and then they get their own musical called Rats. So, thinking for the future. Yep. Yeah, I'll never be bored. Yes.
The plot of this musical, I know that the book is partly inspiring your tenure.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well said. That was such a dignified way to say it. Yes.
I'm bipolar as well.
You are.
I have my
Congratulations. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, fist bump. We got to go. Boom. Stardust. Yeah.
What is the beginning, middle, and end of this story? Because part of it is real and the other is...
Well, that's the thing, is that in fact, in a very real way, all of it is real, in that there isn't a point where everything becomes pretend. All of these things actually happened, these letters, these writings, these characters, these things that actually, like, I dream in that world even today with these people. I know these people. These are my friends, my enemies, my environment, and this has become my reality. And I figure, while that may to certain people sound a bit bizarre, really, it's as valid a reality as any other, and that my personal take on it is that I don't think any of us really live in and share the same reality. I think that we all have our own that we exist in, and that we, as a society, generally have to agree on kind of a common reality in order to just exist together and get along, and that and it's in the way that I think of colors, and that we probably don't see the color blue in the exact same way, and yet we all agree on the fact that blue is a colder color, and it is the color of the sky or the ocean, but how we actually see that exact color is probably a little different. Anyway, I know I'm getting off track. Feel free to stop me whenever. I don't mind that. I talk a lot. But yes, you're like, no shit, girl. Good. No, it is, because it just keeps happening. Yeah, sure. Yes. Exactly. That's why he's one of my heroes, is because I saw his documentary about that.
With the exception of one patient, the rest said I wouldn't.
Exactly. I reference that a lot, even in the book, because it's such, I'm guessing for you as well, and for me, it's been the lifelong question of, you, for certain parts, not all the time, for certain parts of your life, especially if you're not medicated, and definitely not properly medicated, because, it takes a lifetime to figure out the combinations of being okay, and then that changes as you grow older, So it's a lifetime of just trying to figure out how to be all right. But for certain very large chunks of life, you're on the verge of death pretty much every moment. And it's just one of these characteristics, for anyone who doesn't know, of bipolar, of manic depression, is that there's this thing that I've always thought of as being like this little shadow on your shoulder all the time, even on the good days, that's just saying in your ear, out of nowhere, why are you doing this? Just stop. You're like, what the fuck? Like, everything's even okay right now, and it's just pushing you out that window. And some days you actually try and jump. You end up in a mental institution. That's how this started. And that's it. Yes, thank you for bringing me back to that. I don't know. A lot of the time I feel that I would, because of another thing that I wrote in the book, because it just hit me like, no kind of high is worth this kind of low. Because when it's really low, there is no redeeming factor. You can't even remember what it feels like to be okay, to where you can't think, oh, but that time, like, it'll get better. It won't get better in that moment. There is no better. There's just pure darkness and just like obliteration. And so, to be honest, the answer would of course change at the point where, like right now, where I'm in an okay phase, and you'll never be normal, but that's okay. I mean, right now I'm able to realize like most of those people said, the beauties of that, because as sort of self-important as it may seem, it undeniably gives you it does give you access to a portal to another realm. And I think that's how a lot of the things, like when I say this is real because this happened, this story is real. And it definitely, as a writer, a general creative person, it absolutely gives you access to a place that you would not otherwise be able to go to. Or at least, I won't say otherwise not be able to go to, but not with the same instantaneous ease that you would, to where a lot of what you make, of what I've made, is completely effortless, at least the original writing, composition of things, where you just wake up and it's all in your head at once. I don't write on an instrument. I don't need to. It's all in my head, everything at the same time. And because of musical training, I can just easily identify a whole symphony of parts and just fucking write them down. And you know that it is all you. It's just this part of you that can go to these other places and bring this stuff back. So ultimately, I would not press that button. Would you? Exactly. See, it changes because of, bipolar. You've got at least two distinct parts that are constantly fighting with each other for dominance. And so really anything that I answer is not going to be the same, because when I have access to that other thing, it's going to be completely different.
Do you think that your artistic development and everything you've done is a big part because of, or
Yeah.
in spite of?
Both. See, again, I think anything that we talk about is going to be neither or both. And it just depends what time it is and what color light it is outside, and if it's raining or not, or, and that definitely, a lot of it has absolutely been, at least I would have thought the same thoughts. I would have been able to be creative in the same way. I could have even have written some of the same things without having that disorder, but it wouldn't have happened as effortlessly, as fluidly, as magically, for lack of a better word. It is a magical place that you go to, in the good times, and it wouldn't have happened that way if it weren't for that part of the disease. And yet, because I don't really have or want to give myself the option to just stop being creative when you're in the times where you are not feeling that magic, I've had to, especially on this last album, the Fight Like a Girl album, in preparation for this tour and everything, I've had to really go into a very private, dark, deep cave to figure out almost how to do this, how to end up at the same place from the very beginning, and almost relearn how to create and how to write. And it sounds really like deep, and it was actually terrifying in that I was trying, being properly medicated, at least for now, for the first time, I was trying to create from a place of not like that all the time, a place of somewhat, at least for sometimes, normalcy. And that terrified me, because it was in some small way pushing that button by simply agreeing to be medicated. And I didn't have access for some of the time to that immediate place of that level of just insane, unstoppable creativity, to where you're writing on the ceiling. You know, I'm taking apart pieces of toilet tissue to get more plies because I've run out of writing material in the house, and then I'm writing all over the walls. And that's how Opheliac was made. That's how most everything was made. That's how the book was made. That's how everything is created. And you take that away, and you're like, okay, now I feel like a normal person. Where does this come from? And then you realize being a normal person is really still quite a beautiful thing. And you are you, and all of that was inside you. It wasn't somebody else's. It didn't come from a different place. But I had to find a way for, during these periods, brief though they may be, of being okay, to still access that the same material that comes from the craziness. And I've figured out, I think, how to, for the most part, do that. But it was like learning to walk and breathe all over again, and really scary, because there was a point at the beginning of the writing of this album that I thought, oh my God, everything's gone, and I can't get back to that world.
How do you accept meditation as a chronic thing?
Yeah, probably, yeah, absolutely, the rest of my life, unless I make the decision to not be here anymore, which I would respect in myself or other people, to say, okay, I'm done with this. I don't want to live this way, because the side effects of the medication are arguably absolutely as bad as the disease of not being medicated, I find.
You're staying in
A perception of everything, of breathing, of everything. I was a completely different person when I came out, and that's how all of this happened. Is, on the bright side, it gave me an amazing story to tell, which is why, you know, I have the honor of being able to be sitting here with you and thought of as something of an interesting enough person to talk to in general, which is still amazing to me, because I don't think of myself that way. But yeah, I mean, that's why we're here, is because it's something so much bigger now, because it's real, than, you know, a girl wearing corsets and writing songs. It's much bigger than that. It's about this whole asylum reality.
Do you feel that maybe some people, even fans, see you as just a chick with a corset that sings kind of like...
Actually, I don't, but even if they did, I would have no problem with that. I think the vast majority of plague rats understand. I think there's different levels of, there's the really hardcore plague rats that really probably identify with this very closely, so they probably have, you know, many experiences in common, as they tell me anyway, and, you know, a lot of times, and it's very difficult and sad to say, but, you know, they'll come to me and show me the scars, and I'll just make them the deal, like, look, I've got those too, but I'm not doing this anymore, because I've managed to find an outlet, and you as well can do this. So we just make a deal and shake hands on, like, you take care of yourself, I'll take care of myself. That's our deal. So when we shake hands on this, we now have some responsibility to each other. So don't forget that I won't be okay if you won't be okay. So I hope that that means something to them. But I think it is on all kinds of levels, and I've always said that for people who really have a deep connection with this and come to the show or listen to music that way, that's lovely. For people that are just interested on the kind of psychological study level, or it's an interesting story level, or that's also fine. But it's like, I don't want it to really even matter whether people know that it's true, that it's real, that it's serious, that it's about all of this stuff. If they come by the music, the show of any of this, just thinking, this looks fun, this is entertaining, I like the song, I can dance to this, it's a fun environment to be in, that is, to me, completely as valid as any other thing, because part of my job in this is to create a legitimate, entertaining spectacle and experience, and I have so much respect for just that art form that that's completely good enough for me, for the portion of people that listen to this that would just see a poster and be like, all right, that looks cute. I think that's just great.
When I was thinking of it, I knew that people were going to, so to call it this way, awesome.
No, that's wonderful. I love that.
And to some of them, I thought that's very elaborate. A lot of them, I don't know how the parents did translate it.
Yeah. I know. I think that's part of it.
The fans, a lot of them, but never to the level of devotion they have. That was by far the most impressive thing.
It's.
When or how did you realize that they were feeling this?
I actually have these thoughts every day of, I don't know how the fuck this happened. I have a suspicion, which is that I think because from the beginning it was very real and sincere, and that I think people know and can tell that this isn't something with marketing. This doesn't rely on, there's no label, there's no outside funds. This is something that completely comes from me and my crew and my cast, and it's just us. And for the writing, it's entirely just me, and from where it comes from is just very sincere, real reality places and experiences. And I think because it's almost a very kind of profound thing that I realized after Apheliac came out, which was that the moment that I stopped caring what anybody else thought was the exact same moment that other people started caring what I thought. And I didn't know that's how it worked. Apparently it kind of is. And I think it's simply once it became apparent that my goal in my own life and my message, if, I can be said to have one, is the realization of the individual, of creating oneself internally and externally in whatever way you're comfortable with as your own personal work of art, in glorifying all the individual thoughts that you have, in celebrating all the things that make you unique, very simple concepts, but the ones that are also, like many simple things, the most difficult to accomplish in this lifetime. Like E.E. Cummings said, in a world that tries its best every day of your life to make you like everyone else. And that's what we're all, I think, constantly fighting against. And I think when it became clear that that's what I was trying to do for myself, and that's what everything that I show is about, then it simply became more than a girl writing songs and singing on stage. It became about an environment where all of this was welcome. And it's, about, when you come into this venue at every show, about a place of complete acceptance. And that's what's funny, is despite all the dark things that kind of inspired all of this, and even the dark places in my mind where a lot of this art came from, it's ended up being a very joyful, celebratory experience about unity and the individual and all these things and strength and empowerment to women and men, because it's definitely, in most countries, a complete 50-50 split. And then it's become very popular to gays and lesbians and transvestites and everything in between. And that's something that I couldn't possibly have thought of or expected, but have just almost sat back and watched and realized with complete humility that it's become something that's not just about me anymore. I'm just one small part of this whole story, of this whole experience and this atmosphere of this asylum world, which, as the word means, as you know, is actually a sanctuary and a place to go to be safe. And like I've always said, it's not what it was in 1850, and it isn't what it is now. I don't at all. In fact, I think that, as with many feminist writers, authors, musicians in general, that have, the privilege to be out speaking in a public forum like this to other people, that definitely, while it has sort of an illusion of being only about women and women's empowerment, that the reason why it is completely not one-sided is because what is good for us is absolutely good for you. And there aren't and shouldn't be, different rules and sources of power and things for half and half, or really majority and minority, because women are the majority. We're 51% of the human population. So, well, actually it is, in that it's two things. One, it's from the story, which is what all of this originally is about. Is, if you actually read the book, then you'll find that the section that this is about is where, because it's simply the way it was, this is all completely historically accurate, that there's this asylum. It's for girls. Obviously, there weren't really many female doctors, because there weren't really many female anythings other than wives and mothers and prostitutes, if you care to make any money. And so the standards by which women and girls were kept to were almost impossible to achieve and live up to, as far as, purity goes, to where you could be locked up for just breathing the wrong way. So naturally, they're abused and oppressed by the men in this thing, because that's just the way it was. So if we're telling a true story about this, that is how it's going to be. And when the women in this asylum, these girls, finally find their way out, which is how this story starts, is, of course, they need to eradicate the enemy. In this story, yes, they're men, because that's the way it was. This is reality. And then, of course, so that is about the story. Then, yes, it does cross over into the fact that we are not at all represented anywhere in the world, and some worse than others, in an equal way. This is still considered a man's world. How do you think that feels from the time we're born? It sucks. Yeah.
Now I agree that women are still discriminated against. They make less money for the same work.
Sure. Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Rape is a weapon of war. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. I think in any society, and the truth is that I didn't come up with that. That's something that I agree with, but that, well, 2 points that I can quickly make is that, one, it was somebody else, a lot greater and smarter than me, that actually said that that the sort of humanity and kindness of society's people can often be judged by the way that it treats its animals. Now, that being said, it is not at all about necessarily the eating of the animals. It doesn't have to do with veganism, vegetarian even. It's the way in which you kill these animals for consumption that can be done honorably and with respect, versus, when you see these very, very real videos of people stringing up animals in these slaughterhouses and just, hitting them with a baseball bat for fun. And that's a huge comparison to insane asylums now, but especially, back in the day, where the people that would be hired as attendants to chain up these people, men and women, because there were asylums for everyone, obviously, they were majority of these attendants that were hired to watch over the prisoners were from the lowest classes of society, who had either been criminals who escaped from prison, who had been incarcerated for illegal whatevers at some point, and who basically, it's okay, so basically you get the lowest of the low of immoral people, and you put them in charge of the correction of these other people, most of which were never crazy at all. And those are the people that have in their hands the treatment of the animals, the treatment of this. And as long as that is allowed and enforced, because you can also get those people to work for a lot less, and that's really what it's about, is you can pay these people less for the same work than actual people that would be a lot more humane in mental institutions, in slaughterhouses. So when I'm being vegetarian, vegan, whatever, and it's not about my saying, in order for women to be treated well, you must be a vegan. It is not about that. It's that there are ways to approach the treatment of animals, even if they're raised for food consumption, that is humane. And, you know, I will be the first to say that I don't think it's unnatural for all humans to not to eat animals. I mean, we have a long history of doing so. You see, you know, other tribes where clearly, you know, that's all they have. You feed a people with the fish you catch or something like that. So, sorry. So I don't know, I'm kind of going off now, but I just want to make it clear that this is not something that I do as even a moral issue to enforce that in others. It's a personal decision. What I think should be enforced is the humane treatment of all living creatures, and I absolutely do, because of that, believe that, yeah, if your approach towards all life is humane and respectful, well then, yeah, it's going to be for women or, you know, the general people that are considered minorities, even though we're actually a majority, all of that, just complete illogical treatment of all of these things that is for the ill of everyone. And that's why I think it's very important to point out these things about women in all societies, is because I think that we need a lot more male feminists. I think that my men as well, as we do in this show, as we do in this audience, fight hand in hand for the good of everybody. You've balanced out the world. You've basically made things work much more harmoniously in politics and government and society and global warming, in the bedroom. That's good for all of us. And that's, I think, what the point is, in addition to the fact that even most boys, most human beings in general, do know at one point or other in their life what it feels like to be oppressed, to be discriminated against, to just feel really shitty about oneself. All of those reasons are why we all need, to some degree or other, a sanctuary and a place of self-acceptance. And that is really the bottom of what this represents, just told as a story in a really, hopefully, entertaining way. And having some fun with it at the end of all of this, because this is all deathly serious, but if this is all like that we put out this message as, people are just gonna get too depressed and bored to even stick with it. So at the end, that's why there's a lot of hot girls running around in corsets kissing each other, is because we gotta lighten this up.
That was another question.
Yeah.
How come men have never kissed each other?
Because it's simply not what it's about. Sometimes it's okay to have it be just about the girls and the lady love, and because it's also showing that people have options. It's celebrating, and that's why there are so many gay boys and men in the audience, is that they realize that it isn't just for us. It's about, it's symbolic in a really fun way of the fact that love in all forms is a beautiful thing, and all of it is completely equal and acceptable. Naturally, this is about girls, because in the story, girls were locked up together. This is all we had. There were no boys involved in this, so that is why on stage, that's what we represent. But oh, sure. I think that's a thing that doesn't happen almost at all anymore, that happened quite a lot at the beginning, and all over the world, you know, at the beginning of all of this, when it was just when it simply just wasn't understood, and when people would come having no idea what this was about, because a lot of people didn't know what this was about. It was simply a thing that we had to just kind of laugh away and being like, yeah, of course people are going to do that. I mean, we're very realistic about, and we don't take ourselves too seriously in order to be like incredibly offended by all of this. It used to, that's our sound check song every fucking day. Yeah, Michael Jackson's Beat It. That's how we test out the sound system in a venue every day. But yeah, I'm sorry, he doesn't know that we're working in here. Yeah, okay, sweet. It actually is kind of a great soundtrack. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm the one that keeps talking because I hate to stop. It's always my, yeah. No, I know I would like to talk for hours and hours just because this is very interesting and I love conversing with you. But yes, to end that one, we understand the just sort of shallow titillation of what can go on stage, and we actually have a lot of fun with that, knowing that that's exactly what we're doing, and also knowing that to the people that matter, it's a lot more special and beautiful and magical than that. And it's meant, honestly, to be just a beautiful, fun exhibition of freedom in all forms. Sometimes it's really hard to focus with this song going on. This is just such a consuming song. Oh my God, we got stories about the moonwalk, but I guess we don't have time to tell them. I know, it's Veronica's story. I probably shouldn't do it. I got her father a trophy for best moonwalk because he's always said that he taught Michael Jackson how to moonwalk because he's somewhat of a not truth teller. So yeah, he's full of stories. Like, he's a joker, and he insists, and through Veronica's young life, that he taught Michael Jackson how to moonwalk. And of course, because she idolized him, she totally believed him. And also that he beat Hulk Hogan in a fight. That's also what he said. She absolutely, I think to this day, she still believes that one.